Hello, friends. This is Mike Williams. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with Dave Cornblum from Samuels and Scott Ltd. David and R. Scott just released a new album titled FAUL, the Musical, and features Chris Paul Overall on vocals. The album is a wonderful collection of 13 songs and a great listen. And so without further ado, here's David. Well, folks, we have a great show today, and my guest, a very special guest, is David Cornblum. And David is a musician, a longtime musician. He's been in the business for a very long time, and he just released a new album called FAUL, the Musical. And I've taken a listen to it. It's 13 tracks, and David, the music is great. The production value is excellent. I really enjoyed the album. But what I would like to do before we jump into FAUL, the Musical, is for you to give our audience an understanding of your journey as a musician. Where did you start, and how did you get to putting together the current album?
Well, thanks, Mike. And I just want to say it's a huge honor to be on your show. I'm a big fan of yours, and I believe in what you're doing. And so thank you again for having me on. My journey starts in Long Beach, and I was part of the early Sublime scene. I was part of the Sublime fanship that went on in the early 90s. And I was a big fan of theirs, and I would go to all their shows. And then actually my house was kind of like the meeting house for 40 Ounces to Freedom when that was made. And they were going to Dominguez Hills and making their album, and that album became huge in Long Beach for all of us. And through that, I started wanting to be a singer, and I started hanging out with them. And my first show is we opened up for Sublime. We were a band called Cuddle, and we played at the Nugget. And so what happened was my friend Dave Shea, he was the bus driver for Sublime. He would take the band up and down the state on all these shows, and I would hang out with them and experience the whole thing. And I said, hey, Dave, we should start a band. I'll name it after you, kind of like Jay Giles' band. It's called Shave. His name was Dave Shea. So I'm like, now you can't quit the band because it's named after you. So he's all, okay, cool. And then at the same time that we were friends with the Sublime guys, there was another band that was called Wooden Smoke. And they were just as popular as Sublime in Long Beach at the time. And they were very Beatle-like. They had a guy, Gary Williams and Lance Whitson were the two singers, and they were kind of Lennon McCartney-like. And so we were big fans of them as well. So all this was like, and there's always people going to all the shows. So I became a huge fan. I just wanted to become hugely a part of the scene. So Dave and I started writing these songs. One of the big venues in Long Beach at the time was called Bogart's. And like Nirvana played Bogart's. Like a lot of killer bands would come in from out of town and play Bogart's. So our first show was in Bogart's.
Now, one of the things I want to just to ask you, David, is that a lot of people think that these bands, as they're coming along, now Sublime as an example, that it's all just a lot of fun, it's a lot of fame and fortune right out of the chute. So what was it actually like having to truck along to these venues and to these gigs?
Yeah, so it was a lot of hard work for those guys. They were very dedicated, and Michael Happold was kind of like Miguel Happold. He was in charge of the whole thing, and they were like selling CDs out of the back of their car and really working hard to make it happen. And it was getting frustrating for them because it wasn't happening like when everyone thought it should happen. It was taking years, and it actually didn't happen until after Brad passed away in 1996 with the self-titled Sublime album that things really took off. The whole time they were working hard, and they weren't really getting their due. At the end, they had the breakout radio song on K-Rock called Date Rape, and that really levitated them to do big things, get well known. And then they went on the Warped Tour. They were just starting to, build up their name and get big.
But their tenure actually was rather short, though, overall, right? Sublime?
Right, because as soon as after Brad passed away in 1996, that was it. So really it's just like 92 through 96. And then after that, they started the Long Beach Dub All-Stars, which was basically started as a tribute. Wasn't going to have any singers, just all instrumental to Brad. The show went so well that everyone was like, we should really keep this going. And also it was a great therapy thing for them. And they put out 2 great albums. People in that band, I'm friends with them, and they're a big influence on me. So Jack Manis, who plays keyboard, and Opie Ortiz, who's a singer, and Miguel Happold, who's producer and singer, those are the kind of guys like I'll write a song and I'll send it to them to see what they think. And they're those kind of people that inspire me a lot in this town.
So when you got together to form your band with Dave Shea, what was your role? Were you primarily the lyricist? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was the lyricist and the singer, and basically I would sing off of Dave's grooves. And we had we had a really good thing going where we were starting to write all these songs. People started to know us a little bit. There was this band that was also big that played in the wood and smoke kind of scene. They were called Quay. And two players from Quay, Rob Fadke and Steve Cross, they came up to us and said, "Hey, how would you like to be in an electric band, in like full band?" And we were like, "Hell yeah, we want to do this." And so we did our first show with them at Bogart's. I thought it was like a huge success. But as I'm getting ready to go party, they're like, "Hey, rookie, go take all the equipment and put it back in the van." So it's work. It's not all play, you know? So those guys taught me a lot, and they stayed with me, you know, for years. Through that, we started making songs, and then until our first album that kind of did well is called Jesus Shaves, and that came out in 98.
Okay. And so then what happened after 1998?
So then after 1998, we brought in a couple other guys into the band, and we kept rolling, and we actually had other people singing and things, and we made an album called Jams Universal Worldwide. We mastered that at Capitol, so I got to go to the Capitol Records building, and that was about 2004. So we didn't make an album for a long time, and then again we didn't make an album until our last one, High Alert, which came out in 2017.
Okay, so how did you wind up mastering at Capitol? That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so we built a studio in Signal Hill. It's just part of Long Beach, called the Compound. And Antone Arvisu, he runs it, and he also works at Capitol. So he got us in there, and that was a great experience. And we went on the roof. We went through all the build and all the floors. We were on the roof. They said like that's where the Beatles were on the roof, and they hadn't let anyone on the roof since 9/11 for like a security thing.
Okay.
So that was a pretty cool experience. But yeah, so we just basically played local shows, and we never got that big, but we were always at it and loved it.
And then what happened next, Dave? What was the next album, or what was your next project?
So then, at the end of Shave High Alert, we had just finished our last shows, and we didn't have anything planned after that. The other guys in the band, Dave and Steve Cross, aka Elder D, shout out to Elder D. We didn't really have anything planned after that, and I was like, I want to write a bunch of songs, and I figured out how to do GarageBand on my phone, and I reached out to my friend R. Scott, who's someone who I really admire. He's a keyboardist. He makes a lot of great music with a lot of great musicians. He's really well respected in Long Beach, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, send me some songs." So I sent him some songs, and we started building up our last album, which became After the Rains, which we put out in 2020, right before the pandemic. We've actually never played a live show. We just put out the album, and then the pandemic happened. And then during that time, we had started the FAUL album. And so we started building up that during 2020, and then we were able to release it, just recently.
Okay, so did you write mostly the lyrics to the FAUL album, or did you do some of the music also? How did that work?
So I did the lyrics of all the songs except for two. So basically, the FAUL song was the first song. So basically, R. Scott gave me the music, and then I just wrote what I thought would be the beginning, middle, and ending parts of the musical. And so basically what happened is we wrote the songs, and then I sang the songs, got them all ready. We have a big person in our city. His name is Josh Bichelle. He was doing a lot of production where he was getting a lot of local artists to sing like Beatles songs and Beach Boys songs and all kinds of cool things. I mean, I want to be like Josh Bichelle and, cast it. So let's find someone to sing this. So we immediately thought of Chris Paul Overall. He's a great local musician from the band Wonder Love, and he's also the singer for Abbey Road for the Beatles band. And point of fact, he didn't even play left-handed before he started Abbey Road. He taught himself how to do it. He's just like really kick-ass musician. So we gave him the songs, and he just made them next level. We barely even talked to him. We just sent it to him. He sent them back. R. Scott got the backup singers. They're Alessandra Nishwanger and Heather Somhauser. They sing background on the album. So we were just able to put it together like that.
Yeah, it came together great. The production value is amazing. But I have a question for you. Now, you and I know we talked about this, but I'm sure the audience is asking. So you come up with this premise of making a musical called FAUL. It's about Paul being dead. Paul is dead. It's about the conspiracy. So when you first presented this, what was the take of the other folks that you were engaged with to put the album together? Were they on board with the conspiracy, or did they not know about it, or did they think you were completely out of your mind?
So when I presented to them, I didn't think that I didn't know if they would like it or not. I thought they might not dig it, but R. Scott's, he dug it even though he doesn't believe it. And when I told Chris about it, he seemed like he didn't believe it either, but then they started getting into it. And now after a while, now it seems like they're starting to believe it because they're starting to get into all these kind of, Beatle groups that are Paul's dead groups and things like that. So yeah, at first I didn't think it would fly.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was telling you in an email that I know somebody, an acquaintance, but we've corresponded, here and there, and he knows the guys in the Beatle tribute band, the Fab Four, and he said to me, "Boy, you could never ever bring up the Paul is dead conspiracy with those guys. I mean, they just go nuts. They don't want to hear anything about it." So when you mentioned Chris Paul Overall and his band Abbey Road, my first thought was, is he on board with this thing?
Right. And at first I didn't think he was, but he did it and everyone else jumped on board. And so it all went well. I can't, it's kind of, it was like a wish that came true.
Okay. So Chris and R. Scott, go to my YouTube channel and take a listen. Okay. So what I'd like to do right now, David, is let's play a track number 5, Mania, from the album. And when we finish up the track, let's talk a little bit about the lyrics and what it is that you were communicating in that song.
Lost in a mania, so and amazing, yeah. It's getting crazy as we try to push the music through. It's mass hysteria. We're #1 in Australia. I'm going crazy. Trying to push the music through. Trying to get a message to you. It's no miracle, but it's almost satirical. I'm going crazy, trying to push the music through, trying to get a message to you. Screams and shouts, we run about, there's no escape, roll the tape, yeah! Lost in a mania, totally bad and amazing, yeah. It's getting crazy as we try to push the music through, try to get our message to you. Oh, do we believe
So actually that's a song that I didn't write. And, that's R. Scott wrote the lyrics and Chris Paul, he interjected his part into it or making it the way he thought it should be. So basically that's about the Beatles coming to America. So that's the part where after they get on the plane and they're coming to America and the mania is happening. And it's just kind of like how Paul is dealing with the mania.
Okay, so, and again, folks, the the way the album works, and David, just chime in to make sure I get it correct, is you put it together chronologically. So it's tied to what we believe the events are that took place along the timeline from when the Beatles had biological Paul through the point where Billy takes over the band and beyond. Do I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's actually biological James Paul throughout pretty much the whole album, leading to the end where the transition happens.
Putting it together chronologically, how did you lay that out? I mean, did you say, okay, well, I'm going to talk about this, then this, and this, or did it just come about organically? In other words, as you were putting it together, you just moved to the next song, the next set of lyrics. How much planning, I guess, is what I'm asking, to put the chronology together?
I wanted to talk about how he grew up in his early years and then joined the Beatles, and then how they became popular coming to America. And then that's where really the problem started, when John was saying that, you know, the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. And that's kind of like where the drama starts for the album, when he's talking about John. And also I felt like there was never really a Paul McCartney tribute song to John Lennon, you know, and you would think that real Paul would have done something like that. So in that song, there's a lot of tribute and also talking about burning albums and things like that. The next part leads to the studio, and that's probably the most in-depth part, where he comes into the studio in Abbey Road and he's pretty much told what to do, and he's frustrated and he's angry and wishing that things were like how they were in the early days. And then through his frustration, he leaves the studio, which takes him through his final ride.
Okay, so maybe what we should do is maybe go through the tracks on the album so that we can get a better understanding of the chronology. So the first track starts with Hello, and then the second track is Childhood.
Those are two instrumentals that by R. Scott, and that's kind of bringing you into the world, into the fall world. And then which leads to the third song, I Was, and then which is basically the spirit of Paul McCartney touching down and talking about, you know, when I was a boy. And then that leads to the fourth song, you know, how he left his childhood town and starts going out on his own as a musician.
And then that leads to Mania, which is the song we just played. And then you get to another song we're going to play, folks, Beautiful Disaster, which is track 6. So what's Beautiful Disaster about?
That's the second song that R. Scott wrote. And that's basically, I perceive it as a song about Jane Astor, his love affair with her. And then also I see it as when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, Paul McCartney singing Yesterday, but instead of Yesterday, it's Beautiful Disaster.
Okay, and so what we'll do now, folks, let's play the track number 6, Beautiful Disaster. And then once we hear the song, we're going to move to the next song, Illumination, a title that I found to be very interesting. So let's take a listen to Beautiful Disaster.
You appear smoke and haze, your splendor stains my skin as I fall into a dream. You come to me with eyes in need, spinning webs of no return. All we've done and none we've learned. You're always just a call away, and I'm longing for your touch. This beautiful disaster that I need so much. It takes me to the place I love, and the stories that I sell. that I know so well, so well. It seems to end just to start again. A tug of war of soul and skin. Will this fire always burn, 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 burn? You're always just a call away, and I'm longing for your touch. This beautiful disaster that I need so much takes me to the place I love, the stories that I sell, this beautiful disaster that I know so
All right, David, so that was Beautiful Disaster. And then the next song, which we didn't include as part of the tracks we're going to play here, but I will have a link down below in the description box for anybody that wants to take a listen to the songs and buy the album, and please buy the album, is Illumination. So what's Illumination about?
Well, that's an R. Scott instrumental. And so basically Illumination is kind of like representing George Harrison's guitar. And that is it's like a transition from where things end on the Ed Sullivan Show, where things are really going positively, to this new era, which becomes the third act of the album.
Okay. And then the next track is track number 8, and this is a song that we are going to play, folks. And it's called There's Something Going On Here, John. And what's that track about?
So basically that track is a tribute song to John Lennon. And it's also talking about when John Lennon said the Beatles are bigger than Jesus and the backlash that they experienced. So this is the first time they're experiencing a lot of pressure and backlash. And he's kind of telling John, like, hey, there's something going on here. And it's not what I really signed up for.
Okay. All right, folks, let's take a listen to There's Something Going On Here, John. A great tune.
Across the Pacific in the United States, a furor is developing.
Sing me a song that was a hit before your mother was born. We was tough and you were the leader when you shouted, we want more. The bond between you and me, it will be known forever. You show us how to be free, stronger than me, Johnny. The things you read in papers, where truth is merely capers with misleading headlines. Laughing at death only gave us courage, because we both lost our moms. We vowed that day to scream like Little Richard, Elvis, and Buddy Holly. They wanted more. The bond between you and me, it will be known forever. You showed me how to be free, stronger than me. You'll be known forever. I know without me or three, I hope to stay around for some time. But there's something pressuring me. I don't know how things will play out this time. The things you read in papers, where truth is merely capers with misleading headlines. A man as big as Jesus would only want to lead us to the light like a Lord. And there's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John.
All right, David, that's really a great, great song.
Thanks so much.
And what I'd like to do now is we can go down to track 9. What is Down in the Studio about?
So Down in the Studio, to me, it symbolizes when Paul McCartney is called into Apple Studio, and he's told, hey, we have a new concept for you, and which is basically, Sgt. Pepper or a Magical Mystery Tour. If you don't listen, there's danger. You better listen to us. And then the song talks about his frustration with the studio and how he's basically making songs for programming minds. And he's wishing that things were better like the early days. And he just leaves the studio in frustration.
Okay, so that's where the lyric comes in the song, I knew a much simpler time. He's going back to a time before it started to get more complicated.
Yeah, and then the singing accent is like Fool on the Hill type of singing.
Okay, so let's take a listen to Down in the Studio.
All we need to speak to you, Paul. There's a message with changes down at studio where FAUL songs are made. The sound is really groovy here. Mr. Martin gets us paid and paid well. Paul, we have a new concept for you. Paul, there is danger if you don't listen. Down at the studio where the sterling precious bands. Down at the studio where everything is taken from me. Oh, I knew a much simpler time. Oh, I knew a much simpler time where we would go people all shine. Down at the studio where FAUL songs are made. Down at the studio where artists are betrayed. Down at the studio you become a slave. Down at the studio crafting tunes for programmed mind. Oh, I knew a much simpler time. Oh, I knew a much simpler time.
Okay, so that was down in the studio. And track number 10 is titled Darkness. And what's that about?
So Darkness symbolizes Paul McCartney's final ride before the crash.
Yeah.
And I love the way R. Scott did the instrumental. It's kind of with the 60s and what's going to happen. And I really like that song a lot on the album. And it leads up into the ending very well.
And the next song is song number 11. And I have to say that I found the numbering very interesting, David. Now, before we get to song number 11, which is titled FAUL, I mentioned to David before we got started here that the album was released on June 18th, 2021. And when we do the numerology, we've got June is the 6th month. We've got the 18th day. 1 plus 8 is 9. So we have 6 plus 9. And then 2021 sums to 5. So 6 plus 9 plus 5 reduces down to the number 11.
That was our total plan, and we had hoped to deliver it on that date, and it actually happened. So
okay.
He's very lucky about that. Yeah, we tried to be cognizant of, symbols, numbers, and wording in that respect. So it worked out, yeah.
All right, so then it's interesting to me that track number 11 is FAUL. Was that also by design?
No, it was what was going to be the one of the ending songs, but we didn't know if it would be 11.
Okay.
That's how it worked.
Well, it's very appropriate because as I'm looking at this, song number 9 is down in the studio, so that would basically be biological Paul McCartney near the end, right? The 9.
Right.
And then you have number 11 representing Billy or FAUL. So even though you didn't plan it out, the numbers are very interesting the way they did pan out as far as their sequencing on the CD.
Yeah, that's great. That's, I felt like I was guided on this album. Like so everything was meant to be. I mean, everything that I wrote came out very easily. I got each song done very quickly. There was probably a bigger force involved.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because I was asked the other day, I went to dinner with some family and friends, and out of the blue, one of my family members asked me, when you write music, how does it happen? How does it come? What comes first? The words or the lyrics come first? Does the music come first? I mean, how do you know how to put it together? And they were just very inquisitive about how that process works. And, I had to think about it for a second, David, because it's not one of those things where there's just an ironclad answer to it. Many times it does feel like it's coming from outside of you and coming inward. It's as if you're getting some help from above to help you to write the music. And I guess it's not just with songwriters, but I guess people who are artists and very creative in general might say the same thing, that a lot of times they don't know where the inspiration or the creativity comes from. Obviously, these people are creative, but the inspiration and the ideas and the thoughts, many times it feels like it does come from outside. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree with that. I feel like I embed like what's going on. I take in the energy and the spirit, and it pretty much just tells me what to write. And I just try to get it done as quickly as possible. You can tell if it's not right, or I wouldn't have gone this far with the album if I didn't feel like everything was right and I was accepted on every step of it,
It's put together very well, David.
Yeah, I do. So I do feel like I was guided, but I feel like that for every song I write. And as far as writing, I love tackling writing from writing over instrumentals, but also I'll get like a keyword in my head, and which is kind of musical, and I can just take it from there and add a third part and whatnot. So I love all the angles.
Now, with some of these songs, and we're going to get to the track FAUL in a second, folks. With some of these songs, David, did you already have lyrics in mind, or was this something that you just started from scratch?
Yeah, this was started from scratch. I had no lyrics in mind. I was just glad that the album, even though it's about, we tried to capture like the 1965 vibe of music. That's what our style was going for. But I found the music and the words to be, then and then now, just like the hello and the goodbye. I felt like everything was two sides of the coin,
I'm going to put the lyrics down below in the description box as well, so folks can take a look at it for the songs that we're playing for the show. Now, let's get to the song FAUL. And, this is a great song. The lyrics are great. And this is where you actually talk about Billy Shears, right?
Right. This song is the original song, and basically when I heard the music, it made me think of, Paul McCartney's Spirit kind of standing outside his car wreck, and he's thinking like, I'll wait for your love. And I feel like he's kind of waiting to go to heaven, and earn his wings, which, became the Wings. This is his next band. And then during this time, he kind of like confesses, I crashed my car, bloody scenes and songs, like from all the songs about that. And then it leads to the Abbey Road, Walk in the Road. Ringo, George, and John have all grown their hair long. And even though it's later, that part's later, it's kind of, what I'm trying to say is, Billy Shears, this is your time to step in. No one would know if no one would figure it out, because you know my secrets. And then basically he's thinking, I've done this good deed to keep the Beatles going and bring Billy Shears in, and now I can go to heaven and I get my wings, and that's how it ends.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's a great tune. So let's play that now, folks. Let's take a listen to Fall.
I have a confession. I haven't been myself for a while. You probably haven't noticed, but it's been true.
I will wait for your love. I won't be late into the night. This is my break, and I'm taking flight. And then tonight I will wait for the change. And then tonight I will wait for my chance. And I will wait for your love. 'Cause you know my secrets. You know my secrets. We'll be together, they'll think it's us that two. I will be waiting, yes, I will be waiting for you. My voice and face were quietly replaced. I crashed my car, bloody scenes in songs. Together, they'll think it's us that two. I will be waiting, yes, I will be waiting for you. Tonight, I'm taking flight. Tonight, I'm taking flight.
Well, David, a great tune. I really like it. And again, that was the first song that you wrote?
Yeah, that was the first one. So that was the anchor, and then we wrote everything else around it. We kept that the last song, so it was really easy.
Okay, and so the last two tracks, track number 12 is Procession and number 13 is Goodbye. So both are instrumental tracks. And are these tracks that were written by R. Scott?
Yes, they were. So the Procession is basically Paul McCartney in heaven, and he's kind of playing music there, and then also leads to Goodbye, the other side of Hello, and which is just a great instrumental. I love that song by R. Scott, and it leads us out of the world. Because I feel like at the end of the FAUL song, you're kind of devastated, like, whoa, he's dead. That's really sad. And then the instrumentals kind of pull you back up. I think it's a great end to the album that R. Scott threw down.
It's a great listen. It's very, very creative. The whole storyline and putting it together, the chronology. It really is. It's very, very clever, David. And you should be very proud of what you've done here, along with the folks that you've worked with to put it together from a musician perspective. They've done a nice job. And the vocals by Chris Paul overall are great.
Yeah, he's a real world-class singer, and we're just so lucky to have him. We have a couple of great world-class singers out of Long Beach, like Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons, and of course Bradley Noel, who passed away, and just so many other great singers and musicians from Long Beach that inspire, our community to really do great things. So many people have done great things. So I'm just lucky to have these people around that really bought into the project and made it what it is, and just super proud of it. And then to get to you and then pass your test, that was like a major thing for me. So and to be on your show, it's just a huge honor.
Oh, no, it's my honor to have you on. It's just, I love talking to creative people. I love talking to musicians. It's just, it's a whole different type of discussion because there is so much creativity involved. And they're also, I found, to be very, very open to new ideas. Many of them they're free thinkers, they're critical thinkers. They can see things that most of the population don't see, quite honestly. Now, you mentioned Rival Sons. I'm going to tell you what, I love that band.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They are a kick-ass band. I have a couple of their albums. So I didn't realize the lead singer is from California.
Yeah, he's from Long Beach. And also their bass player, Dave Vesti, he was in Wonderlove, or he is in Wonderlove, and that's Chris Paul over Paul's band. So there's the connection there. And then also Mike Miley, the drummer for Rival Sons, he used to drum in Shave for a little bit, which was my band. And he was on one of the songs from our last album that we made.
I like all kinds of music, but, I have that part of me that likes to lean toward the harder rock.
Yeah.
When I have the opportunity, I don't know. It's just something that's in my DNA.
Yeah, me too. They're incredible, and they just played, they just played 2 big shows in Catalina, and they're starting to kick it off again. And yeah, they're from our city, so it's an incredible thing. A lot of great people from Long Beach. I'm super proud to be from here. I think we have one of the best music scenes in the country.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It does. I have a family member that's out in LA right now. They're a young band. They're trying to make things happen. And one of the things, David, I wanted to talk to you about is what suggestions or recommendations do you have for young startup bands that are trying to make it today? I mean, it's not an easy thing. That's why I asked you about Sublime and what that was like. It's not all just a bunch of fun and a bunch of laughs. There's a lot of hard work to be able to make your way to some level of notoriety in order to, at the very least, to make some money. So what are your thoughts about what does a young band need to do? What recommendations would you have for them?
Well, Miguel Happel from Perro Bravo, he always says you got to start at the bottom when you start. So you got to start off and just play shows, market yourself, get the word out, build a website, get on social media, and just start letting people know about your music, and people will respond if they like your music. Like for instance, there's a band in Long Beach called Spider. No one, they don't have a record or anything, and they just played a show and it was sold out because everyone knows that they're just a badass band. People will pick up on that. So you gotta be on it and just stay with it and work your way up.
Yeah, and be social media savvy. I mean, you really have to be in this day and age.
Yeah, get the word out, be social media savvy, and just let people know about you, and then they'll start following you and things will happen.
Okay. And the last question I have for you, and take as much time as you need to explain, how and when did you wind up looking into the Paul is Dead conspiracy? Okay,
so I'm a big YouTube Premium person. So I'm always looking at videos for, for instance, the Secret Space Program. So those kind of things, or Paul is Dead. I started looking that up, and JFK and all these different types of conspiracies. And through that, at first I didn't really buy into it too much until I started finding your show and other shows that were like showing the comparisons between the two voices and the different heights. And then also all the information you had. And through that, one day, like in 2018, it just hit me like, wow, Paul McCartney is really dead. And it just like, I cried actually. I was like, wow, I can't believe this. And I'm a huge fan of Billy Shears, man. I think he did a great job, and his music with the Beatles was incredible, and with Wings and everything else. Like, so anyways, I'm not like down on him at all. I think he's great.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times in the whole Paul is dead conspiracy arena, in the community, people are really trashing Billy, But it's always been curious to me because before they got into the conspiracy, before they figured out that biological Paul was replaced, I would say that probably 100% of these people were liking the music from 1967 through 70 that the Beatles put out.
Definitely.
So that was always been kind of weird to me that folks would get all caught up in that once they figured out the conspiracy. That, I don't like Billy's music. Billy's music sucks, Paul's music is great.
I kind of found that like original Paul, he was pushing it forward, in the songs, and I feel like Billy's kind of he's a little bit more laid back. There's a lot of ways to tell the differences between the two. But yeah, it's totally apparent to me at least. But when I tell people, they're just like, you're full of shit, or there's no way, or I never heard that before. So it's crazy. But it's a great thing. I feel like it's time. And I think Billy wants it to be time, that he's looking for a way to tell everyone. And I think it's going to happen, whether it's from your show or my album or some movie that comes out later or more people contributing. Seems like this is what's going on.
Yeah, well, he's going to be 84 years old this September. His issue is that he's done all of this work as a Beatle and post-Beatles, and he's recorded all these albums and the such, and nobody knows who he is. Everybody thinks he's a guy that died back in 1966. So for 55 years, nobody knows who he is. And so I think when you have a body of work that he has or that he's been involved in, and then as you get older and you see your runway getting shorter, I have to guess that it does start to bother you that nobody really knows who you are. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when he was divorced from Heather Mills and she was like, I'm going to drop a truth bomb if anything happens to me, and it's not about infidelity, but it's going to blow the world away. So that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, there's a lot of clues. That's when people tell me things like, well, there's no evidence of this. I'm like, actually, there's overwhelming evidence. It's circumstantial evidence. There's no direct evidence. Direct evidence would be somebody coming up and say, I saw Paul die in a car crash, right? But circumstantial evidence is used every day in courts of law to win court cases.
Mm-hmm.
But David, I want to just remind the audience that the name of the album is FAUL the Musical, and I'm going to have the links down below. There it is, and I will put that into the show as well. Yeah, I love the way you did that too, with the whole Sgt. Pepper look.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, that was R. Scott. He did the artwork as well. He did a great job, and I love the album, and I'm just happy to, whatever happens, it happens, and I'm just glad to get it out there and have people like you listen to it.
Oh, absolutely. And is there a website, David, where people can listen to your other material or content that you have?
Well, yeah, definitely. We have Samuels and Scott, ltd.com, and fallthemusical.com.
Okay, great.
So you can hear everything there.
Excellent. Well, David, it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun talking to you. Like I said, it's always great to talk to creative people, and you did a great job with the album.
Hey, thank you so much, Mike. It's a huge honor to be on your show, and I appreciate everything, and all the best, to you going forward. So thank you again.
You too, David. Have a great day.
All right, you too, Mike. Have a great one. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
And that concludes another Sage or Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the description box below. And as always, I would like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can find all my social media and web links by visiting my hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to check out my music and album releases. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone with the next show. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
I have a confession. I haven't been myself for a while. You probably haven't noticed, but it's been true. I will wait for your love. I won't be late into the night. This is my break, and I'm taking flight. And then tonight I will wait for the change. And then tonight I will wait for my chance. And I will wait for your love. 'Cause you know my secrets. You know my secrets. We'll be together, they'll think it's us that two. I will be waiting, yes, I will be waiting for you.